Hello everyone. Today I will discuss about the usage of writing board. This is one basic and important skill of teaching. Therefore, in micro teaching, the skill of writing board has a great significance. Many of the teachers or trainees might feel that writing board is a simple tool and anybody can use it. In fact, one should remember that this is the only readily available teaching aid for a teacher, and if used properly, it will do a great deal in teaching. Hence, it is important for us to know more about this skill. So let us look at the slide. It states that writing boards, being the visual aids, are widely used in all aspects of education and training and, and are most suitable for giving a holistic picture of the lesson. By this, it implies that a teacher needs to maximize their use of writing in the board. They need to jot down relevant points of their discussion. They should avoid writing long sentences. They should verbally keep talking or keep explaining while writing in the board. They can diagrammatically picture a concept or use some bar diagram or pie diagram or maybe a picture. If talking about the atmosphere, some atmospheric picture can be drawn. You see, in this way, it depends upon the subject teacher what exactly the teacher is teaching, and in a way that the teacher uh, can jot down certain points, relevant points, so that the learner will be aware of what the teacher is saying or explaining. They will be able to picturize it by looking at the board and listening to what the teacher is stating. One basic thing again the teacher has to keep in mind is that the teacher has to arrange the board work in a way that it doesn't look clumsy. Okay. Now coming to the next part is a good board work brings clearness in perception and the concept being taught and adds variety to the lesson. So if a teacher just keep on explaining, giving lectures after lectures, it will make teaching boring. But if the teacher is making use of the board, the teacher explains, and as I said, jotting down the relevant points, or explaining it with certain diagrams. What happens in this way? The learner will be motivated. Their interest level will be sustained. They will be inquisitive to know and listen and participate in the class. With this, I want to add another thing is that when a teacher questions or seeks some responses from the student, and if the student responses, the teacher can also jot down those responses in the board. That's a welcoming approach in the part of the teacher. So this way the teacher can boost up learning among the learners. So let us further see how the board work can be carried out. In this slide you see the first and foremost is the handwriting of the teacher should be legible. The backbenchers, the middle benchers should be able to see what the teacher has written. But by this I don't mean that the teacher should make the font size so big that it looks very odd. Okay? I don't mean that. the whole I have noticed is that during the practice teaching, what happens, the teacher writes the meaning or the term in the middle, and the font size is so big that it occupies the whole of the board. In most of the school, I've seen that they don't have the long rectangular board. They have some likely square sort of board, not exactly square, but then a small board where not much points can be jotted down. So in this way, if a teacher writes for 1, 2, 3 points, if the teacher takes the entire board, then it's useless. So the teacher needs to see, okay, considering the size of the board, the teacher needs to make use of the board. Okay, so that part is very important. The next thing is that neatness in the board work. By this I mean that the teacher, firstly, before writing or using the board, the teacher should see that the board is cleaned up well. Secondly is that the teacher needs to distribute the board work. Let me just explain to you. Okay. Now see, if this is the board, for example, this is the day's topic, it should be written on the top, and the teacher can divide. If it's a huge rectangular board, the teacher can divide it. The teacher writes down this way from one corner. Okay, having finished this, the teacher can start up here. Then again it can be divided, then again this way, then again divide. So this way it looks very neat. Okay, it looks very neat. So, and also the teacher needs to see that between the words, okay, between the words there are the space. Can you see the space? So space should be provided so that it looks clear, clean, attractive, systematic. Okay, that should be kept in mind. Then again, while using the board, supposing the teacher has given certain bullets. So after bullet, the teacher don't need to write 1 point. Okay, then 2 point, then again underline. No, the teacher needs to avoid all those unnecessary markings while explaining. All these things needs to be avoided. Also, I've noticed that some of the teachers, they keep on encircling 1 point and then underlining, then again encircling. The teacher is trying to stress on that particular point, and in this regard what happens, they keep on marking, and so it becomes very untidy. It looks very untidy. So all these things needs to be avoided by the teacher. Is that clear? So we see that neatness, and it should be legible. Handwriting should be legible. So board work is very important for a teacher, because on this depends the learner. It should be organized and systematic, as I said. Points should be relevant, I've already explained. Brief, sorry, it should be brief and simple. Okay, then teachers should not come in between the board and the student. This is also very important. Now here in this case, as I said, supposing this is the board and the teacher has written this way, this is the topic, okay, and the teacher has divided, written. Now, if the teacher is explaining and you see that the teacher, here the teacher has written a point and the teacher has placed themselves in the middle, and how will the students see the board? How will they jot down the points written in the board? So the responsibility of the teacher is they should, what they should do? They should avoid being in the middle of the board. Okay? After writing, they should come to one side and make use of the pointer for explaining. Maybe this side or either this side, whichever side they want. Clear? So this is something that the teacher needs to keep in mind. So they should never come in between the board and the students. Now another thing is that while using the board, the teacher needs to, they can make use of color chalks. So if they use color chalks, they can make the teaching more interesting. I hope this is clear. If you have any doubts, you can ask. Okay, I hope I can switch to the other points. Okay. Now avoid committing mistakes on the board. This is also very important, especially in case of language teachers, teaching. It happens that the teacher writes incorrectly. So this part is very important. You need to omit mistakes. And if in case some mistakes students have identified it, you should accept it and correct it. Okay, and even while cleaning the board, you should even while using the board, supposing this is again the board, you have written, this is the topic you have written. Okay, so when you clean up the board, make sure that the student has already written. They have written this part, the points. Ask them, students, can I clean up this portion? Are you done writing? Then if they say yes, then you clean up this part. Okay, you clean up this part and then begin writing. Okay, is that clear? So this way, if you adopt these techniques, it is well and good. Another thing that you have to keep in mind is, while cleaning the board, the eraser, the duster, you have to erase it very nicely. It should not be this way. All right, you should clean very nicely from top, like this, very top to bottom. Okay, so that is another thing that you need to keep in mind. So coming to the next part of my discussion is the components of using the writing board. Now the first component, as it has already been stated to you all, that it should be legible. Legibility is very important. It should be easy to read. I've already explained to you all. So if you want, you can take a screenshot. I'll read it for you. No, you can see it, isn't it? So the handwriting part is very important for a teacher. It should be legible. It should neither be too small or too big. It should be medium size, and that everybody can see, and it should be clear. It should be clear. The next thing is that, as I've already stated everything, very clear, adequate space should be maintained between the individual letters and words, the spacing part which I said. Then size and alignment, the handwriting size, a uniform pattern should be should be used, and even the writing of the capital letters and small letters, it depends. Now it should always be straight, okay, straight. In some cases what happens is that we see that the teacher writes very the boardwork is very untidy, okay, it's not straight. So that way it becomes very difficult for a teacher to the student to follow. Clear? So that part the teacher needs to take into account. The next is highlighting main points. The main points or words written on the board should only be highlighted by underlining them. As I said, colored chalk can be used, okay, that is there. Then utilizing the space in a meaningful way. So don't make the board untidy. Utilize the space that has been provided in a well sequenced manner. If you're writing only the important points and also drawing, okay, making some diagrams, make sure that you are not making you're not jumbling it up, okay. So all those things needs to be kept into account. I hope it is clear. So the next thing is that board summary. In order to make teaching meaningful, the teacher should develop a board summary at the end of the lesson. Okay? This implies that the teacher wants to see how far the learner has understood. Okay? While doing so, you will you'll have a brief idea that the learners are able to recollect the points or the lesson that was dealt or taught to them. Then the sixth part is what? Correctness. While constructing sentences on the board, the teacher should be careful about correct spelling, pronunciation, grammar. This is very important, okay? This part is very important, but sometimes we tend to make some error. So in this case, if you yourself find that you have jotted down something wrongly, you should accept it. And if the students point out, you should again accept that, but make sure that your mistake should not continue. It should be minimized to a great extent. Clear? So coming to the next is position of the teacher. As I've already stated that it should never come, you should never come in between the board and the learner. The next part is what? It is contact with the pupil. The teacher at the time of writing on the board should maintain eye contact with his learner. This is necessary for controlling interaction, maintaining discipline, sustaining attention of the learners. I also mentioned this, you see, I mentioned this while speaking about explaining with illustration, explaining with illustration. This contact, eye to eye contact is very important. Whatever case it may be, but contact with the student is very important. If you lose contact with the student, then definitely the interest in learning will be diminished. It will deplete among the learners. So even while writing in the board, you should ensure that you are speaking to them, you're explaining to them, and you're turning towards the student. You should not completely forget the students and continue writing in the board. No, that should not happen. You should avoid that. You write little and then turn, keep on explaining. So when these are interconnected, you will see that discipline is being maintained and you're controlling the classroom situation. You're making the students know, prepared that you will be asking a question at any point of the time. So they have to be attentive. And that you're looking at them means they really have to be attentive. So the teacher's looking at me, so I cannot do anything nonsense. Okay? So this thing, connecting with students, is very important. Whatever be the case, connecting with students is very important, and it is in this way you can build up the rapport. Clear? So today, in today's session, what we have seen that this part, the skill of using the writing board, is very important on the part of the teacher. This skill needs to be enhanced, okay, for enriching their teaching. You can only enrich your teaching if you have good communication skill, if you are able to make use of the writing board or other teaching devices, which I will be talking in my upcoming session. So all these things are very important. So as a part of micro teaching, this skill is also being taught to the trainees, because the board is the only tool which you don't have to carry from home. It is the ready-made tool available inside a classroom, and so you have to make use of it meaningfully. So how it should be used and what should be done with the board, that has already been told to you. So you try making use of it, and you will see that you're really making a change in your teaching life. Okay? So with this, I end up the day's session. In my next class, I shall come up with another such skill of teaching. Okay? So till then, see you and take care.